Hey, it's Carrie Flatla here for this week's Friday Fire at Carrie Flatland Associates and Remax Real Estate Lethbridge. So, closing day. Oh my gosh. Maybe because it's Friday, this is top of mind. But what kinds of things can go wrong on closing day? So many things can go wrong. Unfortunately, there is understandable mythology about how things work on closing day when you're buying or selling a home. That is, on page 1 of the purchase contract, it says that the seller will provide vacant possession at noon on closing day, otherwise known as completion. Well, even though it says that everything will magically happen by exactly 12:00 on closing day, it almost never ever does. Almost never. About 50% of the time we get, quote, key release before noon, and about 50% of the time it's later than noon, and almost never it's right at noon. So I need to explain this because it creates more stress than even the negotiation, than moving itself. It creates so much misunderstanding and stress for buyers and sellers. So let me explain. The first thing to know is that no one, especially the realtor, cannot guarantee possession, also known as key release, to the buyer by noon on closing day. So please do not line up your moving truck and your movers to start unloading all of your worldly possessions in front of the home at 12 o'clock on closing day. Please don't do that. Maybe line them up for a little later that day, or even the next day would be better. Number 2, negotiating closing day on a Friday, don't recommend it. Because if something goes wrong on Friday afternoon and we can't release keys, and I'm going to get more into what key release entails, if we can't release keys on Friday afternoon, now you got the weekend, because I'm telling you, can't find a lawyer at 4 o'clock on a Friday. I love you guys. You work hard and you have to solve a lot of problems, but most lawyers, we had one today. They closed shop at 2 o'clock on a Friday. So there were some outstanding questions. What do you do? So how it works is generally we do a pre-closing walkthrough with the buyer. So the buyer and their realtor will do a walkthrough of the property that they're buying, usually the day before or the morning of possession, i.e. closing day. And possession and closing don't always line up. I'll explain that in a minute. One thing to know about walkthroughs, it is not an opportunity to nitpick the house. The house will not be perfect. The only time you can argue about a ding in the wall is if it's a builder home, because that's a workmanship issue on warranty. Often you will see little minor evidence of wear and tear on a resale home. Pretty normal, pretty hard to hold up a sale because there's a few dings in the wall, sorry, but houses aren't perfect. Now, if there were 30 millimeters of rain the night before and we do the walkthrough and there's water in the basement, we can call your lawyer and let them know you're still going to buy the house, the deal will still close, but the lawyers in Lethbridge like it because it gives them some time before contracted closing to start remedying the situation and deciding on legal solutions. But the lawyers have to get involved at that point. Now, on the day of closing and hopefully possession, a whole bunch of things have to happen. And I've talked about this so many times, but I'm going to lay it out logistically to try and solve some of these misunderstandings. The money from the buyer has to go from the buyer's bank to the seller's lawyer, and the buyer's lawyer and the seller's lawyer do all this paperwork to make that happen. Guess what happens if the bank doesn't send mortgage instructions to the lawyer in time? Or like one that we just had, the buyer's bank, I shall not name names, but it's one of the big ones, did not send mortgage instructions until one day before closing day. So the lawyers were scrambling to try and get the funds to pay the seller in time for closing, possession, key release. Well, that didn't happen, so everybody's panicking. So then at that point, if the lawyers have assurances, and please understand the realtors don't have a say necessarily over this, the lawyers have assurance that the deal will close, the transaction will fund, the money is in fact coming, then the lawyers on behalf of the buyers and sellers will arrange for what is called a tenancy at will so that we can release keys to the buyer and they can move in. The buyers are effectively renting the property from the seller until they can pay for the home. Does that make sense? But just understand, the realtor has no magic wand to allow that buyer into the home. It's up to the lawyers to make those arrangements because there's all kinds of complicated legal mechanisms that have to happen for a tenancy at will to be agreed to. We can't just let people go in and out of a property without instructions from the lawyer. Okay? So, don't have closings on a Friday if you can avoid it. Don't plan to move into the house exactly at noon on closing day. It's a rare unicorn that we can hand you the key as your realtor right at 12:00 on closing. It just doesn't go like that. And understand that there's a reason the lawyers are there, is because they are making sure that the transaction closes and completes properly, the correct amount of money moves from the buyer to the seller, taxes are adjusted for, legal fees, realtor fees, statement of adjustments. Like, there's a lot of things that have to happen. The real property report must be conveyed to the new buyer and reviewed prior to closing. Everyone must be happy with the real property report and evidence of compliance. So, I mean, there's so much that has to happen after conditions are removed from the offer and we're getting from what I call contract to closing. Lots and lots of things have to happen. But it's a bit of a mistake to assume that everything happens at that exact time on the clock on closing day. I wish it were true. Oh, I wish it were true. Realtors pray for it, but sometimes it doesn't. And believe it or not, the banks are slower than ever after this past year of COVID because they're understaffed. The real estate market is hot all across Canada, and they are backlogged. So I can give them a little bit of grace here, but not a lot. They get behind. So somebody in Toronto is not terribly concerned that I have a buyer sitting in front of their new house waiting to get in and I can't give them a key to go in. And remember, if I did give you a key and the lawyer did not instruct to release that key and that possession of the home was allowed, and something goes wrong with the house, whose insurance pays for it? Like, it gets really complicated. So we can't let you into a house until we have lawyer instructions. It's just that simple. If you have any questions at all about the mechanics, the process, all of the things and steps that have to happen to buy or sell a home, please feel free to call, text, email me, message me, 382-7335, or you can get in touch by visiting carrieflatlaw.com. Have a terrific long weekend as we head into August. Stay cool, but enjoy the heat, and we'll see you for next Friday Fire. Take care. Bye-bye.